What's up, everybody? It's your boy Showtimedr. This is going to be your Bernhardt build guide. Gonna get into it here now. Things to note. Faction, he's part of the Dark Faction. The Dark Faction, for those of you guys know, is very PvP orientated and usually starts to shine around mid-game. Not necessarily that great as a faction for PvE, but they still have their uses, so it's not like they're entirely useless. Now, he's also in the Empire's Honor, which once again is bugged here, but I can't show you exactly who's in that, but just keep in mind Dark Cycle, Emperor's Honor are the factions. Now, we're going to get into it here. So, this is an SSR infantry unit, kind of a bruiser type. So, what this guy does on his passive, that's really good. Upon entering battle, damage is increased by 10%. Reduces attack and defense of enemies within 2 squares by 5%. So just being near the enemy, he's debuffing the enemy. And then he himself, he increases his own damage, and you get that a little bit higher. You see eventually it'll go to 15% in reduction of all enemies within 2 squares, attack and defense. And then 20% entering battle damage. So this guy, he's just meant to be right up there in the front of things, in the thick of it, mixing it up. So we're going to get into his skills here. Now I'm going to try, there's kind of a different, I'm going to try this other website this time, because I think that they lay out the skills a little bit better, but it has its own issues too, so I think it's just a little bit easier to go into it, so let's see. So your basic trooper, when you start off, not that great, your basic infantry trooper. Your skills you're going to get, he's going to get a little AoE, 0.36 times AoE damage to all enemies nearby, and it prevents the enemies from being healed. So that's the major thing to take off from that. It can actually do some good damage if you manage to get his attack up fairly high. But the prevent enemy heal lasts a turn. Sunshade, passive. When entering battle with a melee attack, after battle, 30% chance to restore HP. 30% of damage dealt in the battle. So getting his attack up is actually very important. As well as, you know, this is going to be basically a lifesteal for him when it goes off. Pretty good. So then we get to go down, let me look at the Swordsman, then Empire. So that's the other thing, is that these websites that I use, they don't sort by tree, they just sort by whatever's next on the left. But that's just the way it goes. So he gets skeleton warriors, he gets some undead warriors in most of his camps. These guys, even if they get wiped, they'll resurrect at 15%. So as long as you're not fighting like combat clerics or just basic clerics, these guys will do well for you just because there's always 15% of them up as the monster faction. So pretty good. He also gets a cavalry unit, which is pretty crazy. So that's going to help you fight against other infantry, which is kind of a new thing. Or a new thing as far as I've seen, as far as an infantry guy having cavalry troops right off. Like, usually it doesn't come that early. But anyway, so initiating combat, these guys take 10% decreased damage. A little bit tankier overall, but these guys, they'll stay tankier longer. But at the beginning, the cavalry are tankier overall. Now, he's going to get a passive when he's in this tree as well. Hegemony. When attacked, dispels one enemy buff. Pretty good there. Defense, or excuse me, decrease enemy's defense by 20% for a turn. So pretty good overall, just decrease in enemy defense, that's more attack. More attack means he has a higher chance to kill whatever he's fighting. So now we're going to go into Brave. I believe Brave was the next one. Oh, my bad, it's Empire. Oops. Let's go into it here. So Empire, armed skeleton this time. So this skeleton, same thing, he resurrects, but he also has defense passively just increased by 10%, so a little bit tankier of a monster here. Guardian Cavalry, it's your upgraded cavalry. Initiating combat, damage taking is reduced by 15% now versus 10%. So come with the typical strengths and weaknesses. I assume you guys know them all by now, that's why I'm not repeating them. Now this is where he gets his faction buff. His faction buff, it's an active skill. Honor of the Empire. Attack and defense increase significantly. Damage increases by 20% when battling against disadvantaged troops. That's kind of an interesting thing because if you notice, he has the cavalry troopers as well. So, in that case, even if he attacks a lancer, he himself gets bonus damage against him. But then if he's running these troops, they're going to be disadvantaged against this. But This is going to buff not only, from what I've been told, the troops and the hero, rather. It's going to buff them both against their disadvantages. So since he's running so many troops that we have, you can counter quite easily normally, you know, just a Lancer here, and then just someone who deals extra damage to monsters here. But anyway, so that's the faction buff. Kind of an interesting premise. I think it would be more in PvP is where you would see this one shine, personally. So, but PvE, hey, maybe it has its uses, you never know. We'll be fighting a boss that's strong against everybody or what have you. Now, the passive he gets, Sever. When actively dealing damage, deals additional fixed damage to the enemy 2 times the hero's attack, where you're clearly going to be building an attack on this guy a little bit. Because like I said, he's just kind of the bruiser. He's the guy that wears you down over the course of time. Maybe not necessarily a big one-shot hero like some of the other units in the game, but overall just a pain to deal with. Now, he does counter, I do notice that when I fight against him, he does counter the horse classes very well. There's been plenty of times where I have a Leon that's fully buffed, traveled a bunch of squares to him, and he can't wipe him first turn. So this probably has something to do with it here. So that's going to be the build a lot of people are going to go for. Now, there is another build I'm going to come to over here. You can go Fighter, Gladiator, Brave. So y'all know what Fighter does by now, so we'll just go straight to Gladiator, then Brave. So here you're going to get the more traditional. You got your kind of counter class troop, which is the Rock Golem, but that's going to give you Lancers against horses, which is Bernhardt's counter class. And you also have Elite Infantry, which is just going to buff his infantry bonuses. Initiating combat, damage taken decreased by 20% for the infantry. For the Lancers, though, because you're going to be getting attacked by horse units most likely, when soldier HP is below 70%, defense is increased by 20%. So these guys are going to help you significantly tank the cavalry units like I was talking about earlier. So in your skill, attacks a single enemy, this is going to be a stun. It's going to stun the enemy for a turn, and it's apparently 100%. Now, stun in this game stops a lot of active passives, such as Barb. You can do this to someone like Grenier, or anyone with that type of effect. And they're not going to be protecting. They're not going to be barbing you back. Anyone with like an active counter and skills like that is just not going to go off because the person's stunned. So this is actually very strong against those PvP teams that employ those tactics, so keep that in mind. So now we're going to go down to Brave. So here's what Brave does. You get upgraded of all the troops before, the Lancer and the Sword unit. In this case, the percentages goes up. It's 80% versus 70%. Defense is increased by 15% instead of 10%. And then right here, your Lancer. Soldiers below 70%, that was the same, but damage taken now is just reduced by 10%. So when we get higher, the damage taken percentages are going to go higher. So I'm not sure if that's going to surpass having a defense bonus. I guess it just depends on your troop and how much defense they have in general. This guy actually should have a lot of defense. Bernhardt should. So your passives here, takes physical damage instead of a nearby ally. So this is what's going to make him the tank. If you need a tank early game, this is actually going to be the recommended tree that most people are going to tell you, because the other tree that I told you, it's a little bit better for PvP because of all the counterplay. This one's going to be better for PvE if you're going for PvE. So it takes nearby physical damage instead of an ally. When attacked, adds 7% of attack to defense. So it's going to help you tank a little bit better when his parry passive's there. Now another passive you're going to get, Heavy Shield. Attacked with a melee attack. 25% chance. Damage taken decreases by 50%. So clearly a much better tree for PvE, because this is going to help him significantly tank better. This is also the recommended early tree, by the way, for most people that play, unless you really just want to dominate a PvP right off, which is kind of hard no matter what you do. That's what Brave does. Now, there is another build you can go on him with the General. General, well, I'll let you guys decide. I don't want to taint. I'll tell you guys what I think afterwards, but this is what the General has. So you notice a infantry unit that is an orc. This guy can actually throw bones on, which is kind of weird against flyers and like people that attack you from far away. So keep that in mind. He's kind of a counter combat a little bit, or counter range combat. But anyways, you got your Elite Lancer here. It's basically the same as we've been going over. When initiating combat with the orc, attacks increase by 10%. Now, the passive that you get, though, check this out, takes physical attack instead of nearby ally. Active guard range increases to 2 blocks. That's kind of interesting. You can do a double guard, or a 2-block guard, rather. Attack increased by 20% and grants the buff block. Which block, it's, you know, basically, lack of a better term, survivability. Get you more survivability. So, what you could do, you could master what we recommended earlier. You just go down and get down to Brave real quick. Go to Brave, and then come up and get this General, snatch that real fast, and you get your guard range to 2. And then you get all these extra mitigation buffs and the extra Trooper. So, that's my recommendations as far as class goes, guys. So, ideally, stats-wise, you want as much attack and defense as possible. Skill, you can neglect a little bit. HP is always good, no matter who it is, honestly. Magic defense, you know, he's not countering magic or anything. So, depending on if you're doing lots of PvP, and you're doing the PvP build, you want Swordsman Emperor, then you could think about magic defense a little bit to make him a little bit more survival. Now, this guy you're going to want in the front of combat. I'm going to go ahead, get the game up here. I'll give you my gear guides. Gear guides are super simple, guys. I'll just say it right at the beginning. Anything that makes him tankier, and anything that throws out either a debuff or a buff to your enemies/allies. So, but the ones I'll recommend here, the ones that stood out to me, the Spirit Griever. When attack and crit is increased by 3%, damage taken is decreased by 10%. The damage taken is more. Why I recommend this, just the flat out. This does give you more attack and skill, so if you happen to crit, hey, good for you. Dealing good damage, but the flat damage taken 10% decrease is why I recommend this overall. Now, armor-wise, I mean, I always say it, the Bloodline. It's pretty ridiculous. When attacked with a melee attack, 10% chance to decrease damage taken in the battle by 30%. When you upgrade it, the percentages get even better. So, help him be just overall strong tanky. Now, helms, there's all types of helms for him. Gaia helmet kind of stood out to me. When attacked, M defense increases by 3%. When troop HP is above 80%, physical damage taken is decreased by 2%. Once you get into the 35-40 game, all the percentages that you can get are going to stack higher and higher, so that will actually be really good. And just overall gives a fat amount of health and magic defense. And then we go to accessories. Now, like I said, anything that makes him tankier helps him throw out buffs or debuffs to the team, because he's going to be in the front line all the time. But one thing I was looking at, you could give him the Divine Boots, because oftentimes your tank unit, especially in PvE, but sometimes in PvP as well, your units advance at the rate of your tank, because your tank is covering all your various units from whatever you're fearing the enemy team's going to do to him. So getting his mobility up, and you get the flat defense increase. And not to mention the flat stats up here, and the percentage, rather, defense increase. Consider it. Now, most people, they're going to give this to their attackers, which I understand why. It'd be nice if we could just get Divine Boots for everybody, but if you can get these, it's going to be really good. That's what I recommend for gear. And real quick, I'll show you guys elements, but it's going to follow basically the same rule. Anything that gets them tankier, anything that makes them just more annoying to kill. Just look at the bottom 5, guys. Now, you could look at the 6th one here too. Steel, HP plus 10%, damage taken decreased by 10%, just flat. That's good. Thorns, HP, when attacked, 30% chance to reflect 50% of damage taken. Not bad, although he's... You know, that would be better for the Protect tree, personally. HP plus 10 for allies within 2 blocks. Defense and M defense plus 5%. If you're going to treat him as the guy that's up front, going for things, buffing the allies. Now, here are some more specialized ones. Defense, M defense plus 5% on Hard Rock. When HP is less than 50%, 50% chance to restore 15% HP after battle. Really good for tanking, help keep them up. This one right here, Ice. I was talking to someone, they tell me that this seems like it goes off more than 20%. I just go into the 4 stats, guys, because the 2 sets for these ones are all going to be the same on the Ice ones. When attacked, 20% chance to render the attacker unable to attack, rather, for 1 turn after battle. Could be really good. And then also Crystal. Dealt heal effects. Oh, my bad, not Crystal. Crystal's actually bad for that one. Crystal's actually for your healers, guys. So if you see this one, this is actually for your healers. That's pretty much it, guys. So this unit, Bernhardt, he's just tanky as all hell. Trying to kill him is a pain, and unless you can disable his movement, his passives, etc., and just focus him. Even his counter units, someone like a Leon, has issues with him because he takes more, in most cases, he takes more than one hit to kill, no matter how buff you are, etc., if he's built right. And then 2 hits to kill, even someone like a Sherry has issues with that, so... pretty much, guys, but if you got some other Bernhardt tips, feel free to leave them in the comments. I hope that this guide helps you out. It's gonna be my last guide for today, because I got some other videos I gotta put out. But, be looking forward to more. I'm actually gonna cross over into the SR heroes and some heroes that people are ignoring. After Sophia and Lance get their buffs, I'll make some guides for them. I have both of them. I really like Sophia a lot. Lance I need to get into a bit more since he's getting his buff. And... I'd be looking for some general guides too. I've been noticing I need to put out like enchant and gear and all that. Some of the dungeon style guides, so... More stuff to come, guys, so... If you don't know me, yo, I'm Showtime Dr, Showtimedr. You found my YouTube, hit like and subscribe if you enjoyed the content. Also, check the title info. There's going to be a link to this wiki, as well as a link to my Discord and my Twitch. Discord, you can come in, share your experiences, and ask questions, etc. On my Twitch, you know, streaming this game a decent amount. Everyone seems to be enjoying it right now. I'm just having fun in general, guys, so hopefully you enjoyed that. Hopefully this helps you. I'll see you guys later on. I'm working tomorrow, so I probably won't be able to put out any videos then, but Thursday I'm off, and then the weekend I'm off, so I'll be looking to get up more videos then, so catch you guys later on. Have a great day. Goodbye. Peace.